And they also go to the retail. So it is a springboard that will add to your economic base. It's not the sole location for any community improvement or any economic development improvement. And with that in mind, later I have the jeans shirt on. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I have to ask the question. All these things are wonderful, but you have this amount of room and you want to put this much stuff in there. What happens when MoCA has to expand? What happens when City Hall has to expand, or the police department? And an amphitheater, the one I know, and maybe a lot of people here, is Art Circle in Hollywood. That's an amphitheater. I don't see any land like that where you're trying to put this stuff.
Okay.
You gotta give me the land. You gotta show us the land where you're gonna put this stuff in. All great ideas.
Can I take a stab at that?
Where's it gonna go?
Can I take a stab at it? It's hard to argue the planning insight, the textual information that's been presented. It's very valid and good advice, but it's not necessarily graphical. It's about relationships and different usages and such, and that seems fine and hard to argue. But with that, if we plan on the city growing, there needs to be a graphic component where you get to see where the growth of buildings are. Are we going to widen the road? Are we going to increase the park? Are we going to increase the volume? Are we going to have a different road? Are we going to eliminate a roadway? Do we have to double the size? None of that has been touched on as of yet. The one thing that seems to have favor is to have the downtown complex. If we look at that in an isolated fashion, yes, if we're not going to touch the rest of the city, aside from exterior decorating, that maybe that mega complex could come to fruition. And the way of doing that would be to take the northwest corner, which is privately held right now, and to, not through condemnation, but through negotiation, take that lot. By doing that, you have sort of an axial line through the middle of through what's now the west side of MoCA. You can sort of do a mirrored image of MoCA, of the park, of City Hall, that whole area. You would have twice the park space, twice the MoCA space. You'd have space in the corner for New City Hall, which might be the reflected version of MoCA. And that would be the wow effect for downtown without having to disrupt a lot. And the person with that property right now would probably be offered prime choice of one of our secondary parking lots or whatever, where it will be the same value or greater than what they're giving up, with benefits of having access overlooking the central complex area. Just a thought.
I want to make sure I capture you. You said northeast corner lot across.
The northwest corner.
Northwest corner, okay.
Which is sort of a stick in the eye of this, this
Okay.
cultural and civic complex. And it really, I know that the owner would like to sort of capitalize on it, but it compromises the entire vision of having this downtown complex.
Yeah.
And I don't want to go through 10 meetings before we find out that they've already developed that lot. Again, not for condemnation, which could be done by the city. It could be condemned, it could be made into park. But I think through consideration of working out a deal with that private owner to get another select space, same size or greater, same value or greater, that is much more valuable to the city, far more valuable to the city than to that current owner right now.
Okay.
And I think if we could set our sights on that, it would be a great return to the city.
All right. Gentleman right here, glass top of the
It's
head.
possible. You can have Miami Beach and Collins, and you have an outside cafe. Everything works out. And why not? Why could it happen in 125th Street? It's possible. Miami Beach and Collins.
Right.
And we have outside cafe there. I mean, yeah.
Okay.
Why not?
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, so expand on the idea of when to stop there. Why not try and make the block a transit hub? You could start with something small with a small structure for seating that could have one and hopefully maybe even 5 bus routes intersecting. God willing, if the city of Miami gets an actual metro system, it can intersect there as well. So you could have this transit hub there where people come to either switch buses or go down the street to get a bite to eat. You'll see the area flourish because you have a greater incoming traffic for pedestrians rather than vehicle traffic.
Thank you. Mayor?
Yeah. Sometimes when you have a glass, some people see it half full or half empty. And I think for this project of downtown, we need to look at the glass half full. We do have land. From 125th to 123rd on Northeast 8th Avenue, all this land belongs to the city. And if we're talking about building a government complex, we're gonna have enough land to do whatever we wanna do with it. And the images that you have shown, regarding the alley and the restaurants, those does not require lots of space to make them happen. It's just whether or not we want to do it. And if we're going to move forward with it, we have to stop being negative about everything. We need to be able to, we have some building owners that are in partnership with us. We have Yoran, we have Club that is doing all the meetings. They are more than willing or more than ready for us to start the building of downtown. All it takes is for us to say, hey, let's go on it. What we're doing here today, it's very good to hear different people, different opinions of how people see that house.
Okay, just to go back to this and address, ma'am, your comment about trying to get everything in. This is just a list. It's not, everything has to be vetted and approved and everything else. This is just some ideas. We could never fit a huge amphitheater with 20,000 people in there or a new soccer stadium. But it's all about scale. And what we're trying to show you on the map is you have a lot of parking that's publicly owned that could be reutilized as something else if you took the surface parking and put it in a parking garage. So that's basically what we're stating here. It's not, we're not trying to get everything, this whole list and whatever else was added onto the site. It's just, it's going to be a pick and choose about what does the city really want to see on that now publicly held land.
All right, what I'm going to do very quickly, this gentleman right here, because we're running close on time. Yes, sir.
Can you tell me what you recommend out of this list that would benefit the city the most?
That's your job. We're here to listen to you what the citizens want.
I thought those were past meetings.
Well, no, but
How we can-
again, it's you, not us.
Okay, thanks.
Well, well, part of it's not saying that one of these things is better than the other. What it's saying is you've identified these things and then coming up with the process where North Miami, Alex used the term earlier, turnkey. So if you're going to work in partnership with retail, then how do you create the opportunity where a retail person who wants to locate there is ready to go? And so it's not to say if you put retail there versus putting a transit hub, you've got a better return. We're trying to say, how do you look at all those opportunities and be able, that's what a mixed-use plan for these options may be. And I'm going to tell you very quickly the ones that you've added, and then Bob's going to go over, I'm sorry, the other Bob's going to go over some of the financial information. So what I've captured, and there's some general themes there, was a bus stop that relies on not only the city commuter line, but also being able to potentially look at multi-transit lines, making sure that bus stop has amenities and features there, maybe a park that is available that's geared toward kids. Also, as part of the transit idea or alternative, getting people out of the car, electric charging stations there as an incentive, adding retail stores, but when you look at retail, trying to create retail opportunities geared more toward mom and pop businesses that are providing the types of services that residents of North Miami or other places are looking for. That you're not looking for necessarily the higher end retail, but looking at, like I said, the things that are the day-to-day type of thing. Adding Wi-Fi as a way of being able to have an incentive there. Being able to use amenities like trees to try to soften the physical image that's already there. Being able to also look at the idea of, there are 2 points that will provide additional information. There have been the questions about how to, and the how-to part of expanding and also adding a graphic component that shows where the expansion is taking place. That will be part of what the actual action plan will address those things a little bit better. Being able to explore the idea of the northwest corner across the street from Mocha, being able to do a partnership to acquire or develop that property to create kind of a mirror image from what Mocha already is to get a better enhancement and bang for the buck. And also taking into account that the city already owns property primarily from 125th to 123rd on 8th Avenue that does provide opportunities for additional development. One of the things that will come into mind also is that as part of some of the things, the fiscal costs of those will drive that. It's one of the things that Bob's going to go over right now. That when it comes to priorities, there are priorities, but there's also the financial reality of some of the suggestions. So with that in mind, oh, I'm sorry, Alex is going to finish.
So I need to quickly wrap up my. Okay. These again were some concepts we came up with next to City Hall and the administrative buildings to the south, the vacant parking lot, which is city-owned, to the east of 8th Avenue. Someone suggested, there's no place for mixers, festivals in the city. So what we've done here, just to be able to close off 8th Avenue temporarily, if you want to have a carnival, farmers market, or something like that, be able to close off Northeast 8th Avenue from 125th Street down to 123rd, makes a great party space, makes a great farmers market space, adding a few trees and adding treatment to the actual street. And again, what we're doing here is, we all know Mocha is just to the south of this, and to this area is privately owned. That was the purple on the map. Right now, the way the code is, as I said, shovel ready or turnkey, we could take this building and the city would allow, per the code, allow mixed-use residential development right there. Okay, so this is where we're at today, May 14th. We're going forward. The DPAC has been, Tanya?
We're still collecting the names.
We're still,
nominations.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
we're collecting names. So we're trying to wrap up our part of the project in the next couple of months. So there will be information coming out of this meeting. We're going to update this presentation to include other ideas that were gathered here tonight. There's one great urban planner that Tanya happens to like her quote, and I have to read it because I was told to read it. Cities have the capability of providing something for everyone, only because and only when they are created by everyone. So that means it takes everyone to make a great city, and that's from the Death and Life of Great American Cities. The city, on this, if you have any questions or comments, the city has set up an email specifically for this project, which is nomi.downtown@northmiamifl.gov. So any questions, comments that you might have, you could ship them off to the city, and then they'll review it and respond to you. Also, if there are any questions about this presentation, I can be reached at adavid@corradino.com, and also Debbie Love can be reached at dlove@ksfla.com. Thank you very much. I'm going to turn it over to Debbie. Thank you.
Was that not awesome to see some of that visualized? What we're going to do is I'm going to set this up for Bob Gray. Bob happens to not only be a very talented and well-known economist, he's also, like I am, a planner, and like Alex and his team. Now, what we have here, and I'm going to start this presentation, is Bob has a couple of little things he'd like to say before he starts his formal presentation.
I just want to make a couple of comments because all the comments were phenomenal, but two hit very specific points that I want to address real quickly before I go into funding. One, you do have to make a choice or a combination thereof. Are you doing economic development or are you doing community development? They're two different things that can be put together, but that point was well made in terms of what the direction. Again, what we were looking for from our presentation is not just the Mocha site itself. It was looking more at the downtown and actually the corridors, because there's a lot of things coming up that funding is going to have to be found. The other one was that discussion of retail. We do retail feasibility studies throughout the country, and I have to let you all know there's a progression. If and when you have furniture in downtown, that is actually good. It means there's a use for it, but it's at the bottom of the pecking order. And what happens is, as traffic, i.e. people that are coming in to spend, start coming in, you will see that gravitate to other retail uses that can spend more on a per square foot basis. So you have to look at it as a progression, but don't take it as negative that you've got stuff down there. It means there's stuff there, and there's something visually to see, and there's economic activity going on, even if it's the internet. What I want to do is to take a second and go, where in the world is the city of North Miami going to come up with the money to do what we're talking about? You have a lot of tools. The toolkit is pretty elaborate. First of all, what do most communities do when we're doing these types of projects? They're actually running a lot of the costs through their general fund, much like the city would do on street resurfacings, etc. It's programmed year and out throughout the thing. It's a budgeted item. It goes out. You're not going to be able to do it. Your general fund is not big enough to warrant that, but it's part of the issue. And again, under the general fund, you have basically property taxes, sales tax revenues that come in that feed that. As you start growing, that which is not within the CRA, you're going to start getting some income increases to bump those funds up. This is an issue which a lot of people don't like. It's controversial. I use the word possible, but parking revenues. If you're going to do a parking garage, and if that parking garage is going to be a public-private partnership, which most of them are, or CRA funded, which most of them are, then you want to basically to generate revenue. Well, if you don't have a history of charging for parking in other areas, it won't work. So do not consider doing a parking garage unless you're willing to look at the bigger picture and start charging for parking, remembering you can have no parking fee for the first hour and a half. It's just getting people used, if you're staying down, that there is a charge and going on. Local gas tax is also used as a general thing. It's not limited by your CRA, but again, it goes into that big category called the general fund. Another way communities have done, it's very hard to do, but it's called the general obligation. It's basically the community at large issues a bond for itself to pay for one or more projects. To be successful, you usually have multiple projects from different areas within it. You have special taxing districts. You have a CRA, so you're well used to doing TIF funding. That is then a special taxing district. What you probably aren't familiar with, which is the second biggest generator of redevelopment funds, is a business improvement district. And that would set perfectly well, again, if businesses wanted to contribute to it. It's 51% vote of the retailers. But along Key Biscayne, for example, and your downtown area, that very well might be another mechanism. It's not going to pay for everything, but again, you have to look and start putting, again, all these things into one package. You also can do a benefit district. Again, if you're doing stormwater, if you're doing, again, road improvements and the like, that's more or less the same as a BID, business improvement district. It's just not done with the organizational structure or the buy-in of the businesses. It's something that's self-imposed down by the thing as a benefit, and everybody that benefits has to pay a tax on it. I tend to particularly like a BID better because it requires a buy-in into the process. A lot of communities have streetscape fees. And again, we're doing streetscapes. So again, who are the beneficiaries of it? You can actually tax that and bring that up so that again, the community at large is not necessarily having to pay for a local area improvement. And again, that goes from a residential all the way to the non-residential, depending on how you want to do it and how they're funded. You already have a stormwater utility tax financing, I've been told. So again, that's another mechanism to throw in any stormwater improvements, which would be part of the greater plan of the downtown plan and the corridor plans. You also have a host. In fact, the president has come out with a huge budget. It'll be fun to see whether it gets approved both through HUD and through the Department of Transportation. But you have through HUD your community development block grants. You get those. You can use those for this area, again, to help pay for infrastructure. It actually also can be used for economic development. You have Preservation American Initiative grants. Again, these are low interest things for capital improvements, and you have a lot of them tied up in these projects. Grow America Act, again, has just been submitted. That's the one I was referring to. Again, we anticipate right now, even with the political climate the way it is, that there will be a sizable chunk of competitive dollars available for your community. And then within that, you have National Scenic Byways grants. Again, that sounds like that should be something up in Appalachia or something in the mountains. Believe it or not, local communities can draw upon those specifically related to bike and pedestrian improvements for local communities. That should stuff. So anything that we're doing here that has a label that could be a bicycle and/or pedestrian improvement, which is a lot, would be eligible for funding. Then you have TAP grants. This is a brand new one. It's renamed under the new MAP 21 requirement that's just gone through on the reauthorization of the Transportation Act. Again, same principle. Anything that goes towards safety, pedestrian, or bikes, there are grants out there available to you. And then we have federal highway discretionary grant programs. Again, it's political in nature, but things that are going here, I think you would be in a competitive position to go for those types of grants. And green, I want to put this out, because a lot of things with the shading, and again, if we're going for new lights, you put, again, the new lead lights in those that are energy conservation units. There are now funds for doing those. So you may not be able to actually get the lamp itself done, but those are expensive bulbs in the process. So you can actually get those funded through grants because they fall within that category called green. So anything you can come up with that's energy savings, there are now grants available for that. And the one that's probably the closest to my heart is I really do think you have a gem and you have a catalytic capability of your FEC station. That is going to be potentially an intermodal station. Lots of money. We've been very successful the last 2 Tiger grants to get Raleigh their money for their station to expand that as an intermodal. There's no reason you can't get those dollars also here. But that will bode very well in tying your biggest economic generator, which is basically Biscayne Boulevard, and pull it toward downtown. If you do that station in between, you're now within walking distance of downtown. So it actually provides a linkage downtown to Key Biscayne, and therefore you have the linkage to Florida International, Johnson and Wales, and back of you, Berry College. State of Florida, these are starting to be passed downs from the feds to the state. The state then, to the extent that right now they own all those roads, we need to go for them for funding. And again, I think without a doubt, there is a big movement under the current administration to do basically what we call smart growth strategies, which is not to do just transportation planning the old way, but to figure out ways to make them mobile and to make them community development organizations where you can live, work, play, and buy. And again, these, I'm not going to go through it. One of the big ones right now you can immediately apply for, which is safe routes to schools. You are linked in this area back with your high school. So again, any improvements that we're doing with pedestrian and/or bike, there are now funding available to that, as well as on bigger items, the State Infrastructural Bank SIB program. And again, some of these other ones are big ticket items. Your MPO is the one that they basically take a lot of the federal funds from the state, goes back to the local county here, Miami-Dade. So they have a lot of funds capability. It's political in nature, but you need to be working with them closely. And they have a subset, which is actually very easy to get, which is the municipal grant program. And the last one I want to work with is sponsorship. A lot of the graphics you saw had to do with street lights and pavers and benches and garbage holders and the like. Well, every one of those you can sell. Pavers, many communities. I just came back from Atlanta. their Freedom Park is almost totally pavers with people's names. You sell the pavers for a lot more than the pavers cost, and so therefore it becomes a way to recapture the cost of those up and down. It's a great way to build civic pride in the areas. Benches, you sell the benches. Get local communities to put their name on the back of it. They buy the bench, they get credit as a sponsorship. That goes for everything, whether it's lights, benches, whatever it might be. The selling feature is it sells business pride, community pride in the community. And again, this is what was talked about here. So a lot of people forget about that. And it's part of what I call a public-private partnership in a very positive means. And with community involvement in this process, I really do see some significant dollars being able to generate, not just for your downtown, but along each of the corridors. Okay? I'm not going to go, you won't be able to read these anyway. I've gone over these with your staff, and they've already started to call and make connections at the state. But these are all various grant programs with who to contact, what the requirements are, everywhere from HUD to EPA, all the way through. So what I'm trying to say is don't let money be the limiting factor here. Let's think big, because there is money available for you to move forward.
Always have to applaud the money guy. Before Tanya comes up, I would like to thank everybody for coming. This really and truly is a partnership between the community, staff, and the consultants. And we talked about it at the beginning. The city manager mentioned how it is you guys, it's us, but it's your plan. And we are working together. Tanya, would you like to close us out tonight?
The insight this evening, I just want to mention that there will be one more forum before we have the draft action plan created. So you'll still have an opportunity, if there are folks that you think that should have been here that missed another bite at the apple. We're going to be sending out a flyer for Forum 3. This one is going to be a little further west on the west side of the city, so that we have a broad sweeping input, both east and west sides of the city, for the action plan process. And before I wrap up, Mr. Ghani, I know you had a few closing remarks? And Mr. Ghani has no closing remarks. So I just want to thank everyone again for coming out. The presentation that you saw tonight will be on our website. I know several people were asking, how can I get information on those grants? How can I get information based on some of the renderings that I saw? This will be uploaded on our website, so you'll have access to it. And again, thank you. Stay involved in the process. If you have any questions, there was an email address that was shared before. If you could put that back up on the screen. Any questions that anyone has, any contribution. I know sometimes it's intimidating when you're in a public setting to raise your hand and say, this is how I feel. Someone had whispered at the corner of my ear for one of the uses for the Historic Society. I don't know how many people are aware, but we do have a Historic Society in North Miami. I've seen several of the pieces. Unfortunately, it's in City Hall basements, it's in boxes. I think this would be such a great opportunity. I think Dunia, who is a resident, had shared. It would be great to see that memorialized in an actual space, in a museum, whether it be a room in the civic complex. So just to clarify, because someone did ask, no, we already have a library. It's specific to the Historic Society to preserve North Miami's history and rightly display it with integrity and display it with some pride, rather than have it just relegated to boxes right now where we have in our basement. So I just wanted to add that piece for my friend that was sitting at the side. So for those of you that felt that you had other burning things that you wanted to share, brainstorming ideas, we welcome that. Send us an email, drop us a line. Most of you have our contact information. Visit us on the website and let us know your thoughts. This is your plan. It's North Miami's plan. And we mentioned before, we don't want a dusty plan that sits on the shelf. We've done that for enough years. We shared a rendering 14 years old. Did you get that? From a charrette that occurred for the 5 Points area. This is what we talk about in active planning. And what we're trying to create is an action plan, where we move beyond vision to actual implementation. So we mean serious business, and we are excited that we see this much participation. These faces that I'm seeing are totally different than what we saw at Forum 1. So again, I see the momentum building and the interest is there. So we just ask that you stay connected to the process. For the students that were here tonight, show of hands or students that have their work on display. Can we hear a round of applause for our students? I just want to brag on our students. This is exciting. Our architect mentioned how impressive. There's our email address for those of you that just want to give additional comments. This work from our architectural and planning community, when we see this, we're excited. This is the future of planning and the future of the contribution that we have to the civic space as a part of the process. Again, for the students, the deadline is June 13th to get your submittals in. This is just a precursor to what we have coming as a part of the civic space competition. Again, thank you, and I wish you all a good night. There's still refreshments for the taste of North Miami. Have a good night.